Hello and welcome to episode 240 of Page One, the Writers Podcast. I'm Marco.
I'm Tarek.
And thanks for joining us on the podcast where we like to speak to writers of all kinds about their writing careers, find out how they got into the industry and try and get as many hints and tips from them as possible. And there are obviously a lot of episodes before this, 239 in fact. Probably more with some bonus episodes. So please do check that out if you haven't already. But we have a great guest for this special in-studio episode
Yes,
today.
we're live. We're not live at all. We recorded in the studio today with Catriona Silvey. It was a wonderful chat we had with her. She's written two really fantastic novels. Her latest, Love and Other Paradoxes, is out now and is a really cool rom-com time travel kind of mashup. She chats about what it's like taking on those different genres, you know, wanting to perhaps branch out into different areas and how hard that might be.
Yeah, you know, we always hear you should try and stay in your lane. You know, once you have a lane, you're meant to stay in it. But she definitely doesn't. But it seems to be working out okay for her. So yeah, no, it's a really fun chat. So we'll get straight into it after a quick advert. But before we do, I just want to mention that we do have a Patreon where you can support us, and that helps us to continue to make the podcast, possibly even get more in-studio episodes like this. And there's lots of benefits. You get early access to episodes, you get bonus bits of episodes, bonus episodes, notebooks, books, lots of stuff.
So much stuff.
Yeah,
Too much stuff, really.
Please do check that out. And also wanted to mention that we are now part of the Step Podcast Network with Nadine Matheson of the Conversation Podcast. You can follow Step Podcasts on Blue Sky or Instagram. You'll get details of all our episodes, all her episodes, plus our joint show, Adventures in Publishing Land as well. So yeah, please do check that out as well. But enough from me.
On with the podcast.
I'm sure you know my usual opening question is, did you always want to be a writer?
Yes, and I have the very cliched answer, which is yes. Ever since I knew what a book was and that there were people behind the scenes who were making them happen, I was like, I want to do that. My parents have got in a plastic wallet somewhere in a drawer a book with air quotes that I wrote when I was, I don't know, 6 or 7 or something. That's got a thrilling plot line about me and my brother going outside to play, and then it rains, so we come inside, and then it would be sunny, so we go outside. It's just
plot
Scottish
twist.
childhood, yeah. Exactly. So yeah,
That's sort of day in the life book, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, following on from that, then I guess not a surprise you went and studied English at uni as well. Was that all in support of this love of writing then?
I think that's why I applied and thought it would be a good idea. In practice, it really didn't help me with my writing at all. It was a good opportunity to read a lot of stuff really quickly, and I guess I got an introduction to the canon of English literature, as it's called. But my interests are always more in science fiction and fantasy, and you don't tend to get to read a lot of that when you're doing an English literature.
Was it a creative course at all? No.
Not at all, no. So I did my undergrad at University of Cambridge, so it's very old school, as you could probably imagine. And I think you could do creative writing and submit it for like extra credit, but I never did because I was very lazy about my writing at that time in my life. But yeah, it was very much kind of, this is the canon and you will study this. And the only sort of vaguely speculative adjacent stuff we got to study was magic realism, so I got to do a bit of that and I clung to that as much as I could. And then after I finished, I just read as much science fiction and fantasy as I could for years because I'd been sort of prevented for a while.
Yeah.
But you have about, am I right in saying you've got about 25 degrees? Is that right? Is that
if you round up to the nearest 25? Yeah. I suppose I've got 4. That's still quite a lot, isn't it? That's still more than you actually need if you're not like an ophthalmologist or something. That's too many. So I've got 2 master's degrees, one of which I got a scholarship to do straight after my undergrad, and it was like a free ride to go to Chicago for a year and just do a master's. Like, yes, please. So I did that, and then much later, after I'd worked for a while, I went back to study evolution of language and cognition, as you do, and that was at the University of Edinburgh. So I ended up doing a PhD in that because I enjoyed it so much.
Well, that was the one I saw, and I wanted to ask you, what exactly is the evolution of language?
It's a very good question. Can I remember? It's been a while since I was in the field, but it's basically just asking the question of why is it that humans are the only species that has the insanely complex communication system that we have? Like other animals do communicate with each other, but none of them have the same sort of level of vocabulary or grammar or the kind of obsession with communicating with each other that we do. We're just this weirdly social species that just want to be giving each other information all the time. And it's basically trying to find out why that is. And no one knows. I mean, maybe they've solved it since I left the field. At the time, everyone's just like, who knows?
And, throughout that time, were you writing as well? Or when did you actually start to sort of seriously turn your hand to trying to write something?
So, I mean, I've always written, but not really seriously until, I would say, probably after my first master's in Chicago, when I came back and I started working an actual job. And maybe it was the boredom that kind of motivated me. So that's when I started, I would say, seriously writing for publication, like trying to finish a novel and polish it up and stuff. So yeah, ever since then, basically, I've been writing in the edges of my various jobs. And it took a long time to get from there to actually being published, as it does for most people. Yeah.
Well, your first novel was Meet Me in Another Life, which came out in 2021. And was that the novel that you always were working on, or have you worked on other novels before that?
So that, I think, was my 8th
finished
manuscript, and that's not
okay.
counting the ones that I'd nearly finished or did half of. So there's a lot more in the drawer. But that one was not a huge span of time from starting it to finishing it to revising it to getting the book deal. But my second book that just came out, Live in Other Paradoxes, was actually the second complete manuscript I finished, but it needed a lot of rewriting to get to the point where it was actually publishable.
So the those 8 novels that you've written before, were they all kind of similar types of novels? Were they all sci-fi, magical? Oh, no, not.
Well, I mean, they were all, SFF, I would say, broadly speaking, in one way or another, but otherwise very, very different from each other. I've always wanted to write books that are wildly different from each other, and I'm told that that's not a good career move.
Exactly.
My agent, bless her, she always says that it's a fun challenge, but I can see the kind of despair behind the eyes. It's like, how am I going to sell this? They would sort of round the gamut from sort of quite grounded fantasy through more epic fantasy to what the book I actually signed with my agent for was the YA fantasy and various kinds of science fiction as well.
So what book number was it that you signed with your agent?
That would be book number 3.
Okay.
Finished book number 3, yeah.
So, so were you with? So I'm just trying to work out. So did you?
The timeline.
You signed for it? Yeah, exactly. You signed on book number 3.
Yeah.
You didn't get published till book number 8. So does that mean you were writing and submitting and not getting anywhere for 5 books?
So a lot of those books I didn't even send to my agent because I knew that they weren't good enough. So I think book 3 was sellable. It didn't end up selling. That was a YA fantasy. But I needed to practice a lot more basically until I could write the sort of books that I wanted to write. I'm not saying the YA fantasy is easier, just that one in particular came more easily to me. And then the stuff that I wanted to write, I basically had to get a lot of really bad words out. So that was, I guess, books 4, 5, and 6. I can't even remember the specifics of what they were, just that I think of them as practice books, basically.
Yeah. And when you look back at those books compared to the book that was finally published, do you see a difference? Is it obvious to you why those ones didn't work and why?
I think so. And for me, one of my big weaknesses has been structuring the plot of a book. So there were some good bits in there, which I have actually reused since so I've got another book hopefully coming out next year that I've reused bits from one of those drawer novels. I just took a chunk of it that I really liked and reworked it. But yeah, they just didn't have proper narrative structure. So they were probably very boring to read. So just like a bunch of things happening one after another. But yeah, so I think after I signed with my agent with book 3, I didn't send her another book until book 7 and book 8. And in the meantime, we were revising book 3 because we got a revise and resubmit and various things. So it wasn't like I was just sitting around. But yeah.
I mean, what timescale are you talking about between book 3, these other books, and then book 8 being picked up?
So I'm going to have to dig into the vaults of my memory at this point. So I signed with my agent. I remember this vividly because it was just after the Brexit referendum happened and I was living in the US at the time. And that was hard because everyone was sort of only talking about it in terms of what it meant for Trump possibly being elected. And obviously that was terrifying, but I was like, it's also important in itself and it's really upsetting to me. So I have a separate writing inbox that I only check. I can see if there's emails in it, but I don't have to look at the emails.
Right. Okay.
So I'd seen there was a message in there and I was like, well, everything's terrible, so it's just going to be another rejection, isn't it? And then I opened it about 5 days later and it was an offer. And I was like, oh, no, is she going to rescind the offer now? Because I haven't replied straight away. But thankfully, she did not rescind the offer. So yeah, from there, I don't remember the exact timeline, but it was maybe a couple of years on submission or doing the revision, the revise and resubmit that didn't end up going anywhere. And the book that sold my debut, I wrote that in 2018, I guess. So yeah, 2 years later. And revised it with my agent, and we went on sub in, must have been September 2019.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just doing the maths in my head there. I mean, you're obviously writing books at a fair pace then, if you're getting.
I was at the time. Yeah. That's when I was kind of living on my own in Chicago. My now husband was about 4 hours away on the train, which taking a train that long in America is a nightmare because you're always stuck behind a freight train and they don't do public transport very well. So I had a lot of time, basically, even outside of my job. I was a postdoctoral researcher at the time, but I had like most of my evenings to just sit and write, all my weekends, apart from when I was visiting my husband, to sit and write. So I had a lot of time in my hands and I used it. Now my life is very different. I have 2 kids. I have a day job 3 days a week. Weekends are obviously gone, so I think my pace is much slower now. So yeah, I know that makes it sound like I was a total machine. Maybe I was, but not anymore.
What is your writing schedule now then? Are you an early morning 5 a.m. writer, or are you midnight?
I don't understand those people. I mean, I know it works for some people, but that would just even having to get up at 7, which is when my kids get up, is too early for me. So I'm lucky that I have 2 days a week just for writing. So I use those days. If I'm on a deadline, I do sometimes work in the evenings as well. But I try not to do that constantly because I just burn out. I get completely exhausted. Same with weekends. I can work while the kids are napping or listening to stories or something, but it takes a toll if I do it week after week. So really, it's just those 2 days. Yeah.
And are you someone that likes to plan these things out? You know, with that pace, especially what you had before, it sounds to me like you would have to know kind of where you were going with these bits.
It might sound that way. I think that was part of the problem, is that I was not a planner, right. And I was one of these, some people really aren't planners and they've tried to plan and they've realized it doesn't work for them. That was not me. I thought that I was definitely not a planner because I was a bit down on the idea of planning. I was a bit of a snob about it, like, oh, but if you need to plan, what about the inspiration and all this kind of stuff? Yeah. And then I later realized that actually for me it would really be helpful to have a clue of where I was going, and then I wouldn't go on all these tangents and end up writing 200,000 words of just rambling nonsense. So these days I do try and plan a bit more typically. But yeah, that's been quite a change in my process, especially since getting a book deal. I mean, a lot of people find this, that you're then expected to be able to write an outline for the next thing. And so that has also sort of forced me to be a bit more of a planner. Yeah.
Well, your first book, Meet Me in Another Life, as we say, came out in 2021 and was a big hit. It was number 2. It was number 2 in the Watson's bestseller list, which is
so
amazing.
Tell me, yeah.
And am I right in saying you've also been sold film rights to Gal Gadot or Gal Gadot?
It's Gal Gadot. Everyone says Gadot, yeah, which I guess is like the Bardo or like the French name.
Okay. But that's awesome. That's pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, with film stuff, I always find it so weird because it never feels real.
Yeah,
it's just this kind of fake thing that's happening. Yeah. Every so often you get some money through and you're like, oh, okay, that's nice. But I mean, it is very exciting. I'm very, very lucky to be in that position. But it's still true that, most projects, even that get optioned, do not get made. So I'm not exactly holding my breath.
No, but a sensible way to look at it. Yeah.
Right, but the signs are positive. There's a script, there's a director attached, there's various sort of things that have been moving on. So, we'll see. But
I mean, that must be a really good kind of validation of for your first book to come out, to have that kind of buzz, the sales, the attention, the media attention and stuff. That must be really nice.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge bonus because obviously these days anything that you can get to kind of make your book more visible is huge because it's so difficult to break through. There's so many books being published at any one time. Yeah. So I was really grateful that happened. It did help.
What order did those things happen in terms of like getting to number 2 in the bestseller list compared to the film sale?
So the film sale actually happened before the book came out.
Right.
Oh, did it?
Even
Okay.
in the US, but it wasn't announced until release date. So they always do that way to make it look like it's been snapped up. But actually, these things are being circulated. So I have a film agent who works with my literary agent, and he was working with scouts, and so through that kind of network, the advance copy had ended up on the desk of a producer who had like got excited about it and stuff. So that all happened like before the book even came out. And then the Waterstones thing, I think a lot of that was down to the fact that we had a special edition with Waterstones, which again was a huge boost because it means that they have a real incentive to try and kind of push the book and sell it. It was also beautiful. It had a black sprayed edge and it was gorgeous. So yeah, I think that was a big factor in that. And that's mainly down to my publisher having a very good relationship with Waterstones. So there's all these factors that can kind of help you out.
We were talking about spreads, as they're called, to one of our, I think it was Sarah Pimbra. And, you know, it's funny to me that certain types of books will get spreads and certain other types of books would never get a spread. And it's the same with these sort of boxes and things like that. You know, there is a part of publishing that is, you know, it does become almost a collectible item.
Yeah.
Whereas, I don't know, your police procedurals or something are just sort of, you'll never get that sort of treatment for them. You know, why do you think that is, that they're treated differently like that?
I think it's about the audience, or I think it's about the perceived audience. That the kind of books that tend to get the sprayed edges, the book box things, tend to be ones that appeal to a more female audience, a more online audience, a more social media audience that want to take the, you know, beautiful reels of these gorgeous copies and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I'd be curious to know whether that's just based on an assumption, and maybe crime readers would like, you know, beautiful copies of their books, or if I assume that maybe the idea is that they get through books quicker, and it's more of a kind of, I just want the next one. I don't want to sit and stare at this one.
I mean, crime readers must. I think they read a lot. The crime books often, you know, especially compared to fantasy books, quite short. Exactly. And probably a lot of ebooks and stuff. I feel the market probably just isn't the same, and it's funny though, because so often you hear people talking about sci-fi and fantasy books in a negative way. You know, they're not real, you know, saying this, but they're kind of insinuating they're not real books, so they're just not as important a genre as literary or crime or something. Whereas when you look at the spreads and the loot boxes and stuff, there's way more money being spent making these amazing products for fantasy and sci-fi books than gets spent on crime or literary books.
I wonder, like, obviously a big part of that must be the rise of book talk on Instagram and stuff like that.
The
because
visuals.
you can, you know, it's a nice thing to show
you're right. I think that's right.
Stuff like that. Whereas,
and the exclusivity of, like, you know, there's only so many copies of this, and I've got the first one or something. And readers love it. Like, I was doing, I was on a romantasy panel, despite the fact I don't write romantasy, last night with Sarah Rees Brennan, author of Long Live Evil, and there were so many readers coming up to her with the Fairlute edition of her book, or the Goldsboro edition of Ruth Frances Longbook, who was also on the panel, and just, you know, holding the precious objects and wanting to get, you know, this copy signed. And it is something that's really, really special to readers, I think, to have that kind of extra. Yeah, definitely.
And your latest novel, and you have it in front of you there, Love and Other Paradoxes. Do you want to tell us what that one's about?
Sure. So Love and Other Paradoxes is a time travel rom-com. It's about a guy called Joe who dreams of becoming a famous poet. And he ends up embroiled in a love triangle between the muse who is destined to inspire his future poetry and a rogue time traveller who is in the past for reasons of her own.
Brilliant. That's very cool. And it's set in Cambridge?
It is, yeah.
And that's, obviously, you went to Cambridge for a while, you said earlier. So was that an important thing for you? Did you want to write about that time of your life? Was it kind of commentary on anything?
So I wanted to write a comedy specifically based in Cambridge because I found it a completely ridiculous place, to be honest. I feel like there's a perception that if you write the Cambridge book, it has to be this weighty, philosophical, or, you know, maybe dark academia, and there's secrets in the corridors. And I was like, no, it's a completely absurd place. So yeah, I wanted to write a comedy, and I also wanted to write a time travel book because it's a place that is deeply obsessed with the past to a kind of crippling extent at times. But it's also got an eye on the future in that there's, you're very aware that, you know, all the famous alumni have gone through, and you're somehow, it can feel like you're expected to do amazing things just because you happen to have gone to this institution, which I think can be really harmful to people. So yeah, that's the reasons that I wanted to write a Cambridge book, basically. Yeah. It's also set at the same period that I was an undergrad, and my friend, you know her, Catalina Watt, was chairing an event, and she described it as a historical novel, and I crumbled to dust.
I am 150 years old.
Right,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, it is 20 years ago. I guess, is it historical though?
that feels like an unfair description.
It's not contemporary, that's for sure.
When does a novel
I know,
become
that's a good
historical?
Right, I
question.
mean,
Yeah,
technically she was correct, but
Surely not 20 years. That feels
So,
far too close.
I want to ask you about writing sort of humor and stuff like that, because it's not, I think a lot of people, it's the same with movies and stuff, like comedy movies and stuff get often downplayed as silly, but there's a lot of skill that goes into making something funny that people can jive with and stuff like that. So, I mean, does that sort of side of it come naturally to you?
So I love writing dialogue, so that's where it does come naturally to me. I don't know why, but some characters, just the dialogue, it doesn't feel like I'm writing it. It's like I hear it and then I write it down, so that's fantastic. But trying to write a funny book, it's really, really hard, turns out. This is by far the hardest book I've ever had to write. I'm finishing up what will hopefully be my next book, Gothic Horror.
Right.
And that's been super easy. You're just like, death, horror, blah, blah, blah. But trying to write something that makes people laugh and is also, specifically the rom-coms, you're aiming for this style that seems effortless.
Yes.
And so when people read it, they think, oh, this person doesn't really know how to write. They're just putting these simple sentences together. But actually coming up with that style is really, really hard. So it's been a challenge. It's been a fun challenge, but also, really, really difficult.
And with something like that as well, are you having to, if not meet the tropes of the genre, but sort of at least reference them in some way because it's what people expect with a book like that,
I mean, I put a bunch of tropes in here because I enjoy them, really. It's more about...
I mean, I often think that's why things are tropes. They get talked down, but people like them.
Readers like them. And I mean, the reason I wanted to write a rom-com is because I enjoy a rom-com. Like, I love all the stuff, and the way that... you have the reader knows a bit more than the characters in a rom-com, and I think sometimes people who don't read romance get a bit puzzled by that, and they say, oh, but we know what's going to happen. It's like, that's the point. You are supposed to know. You're supposed to know more than this idiot character who's blundering through thinking they're into this person when they're actually into that person, etc. There's a bunch of tropes in here. There's a love triangle, which is obviously a very loved and hated trope. There's forbidden love. There's kind of two people pining for each other, or like knowing that the other one is pining for them. So I try and have a lot of fun with the tropes. Basically.
I feel you can't really win with tropes, can you? Because if you put the tropes in, you get accused of being you're just doing boring. If you do something different, people are like, what? That's not the ending I wanted. So it's a difficult situation to be put in, I think. Yeah,
and I do try and do a little tiny bit of subversion of some rom-com stuff, but you can't subvert it too hard, or you've failed to do a rom-com basically. So some genres you got to really play it a bit straight.
And you are obviously. There's a sci-fi twist in this one with the time travel, etc. What's the draw for you in terms of science fiction, and what's the pool there?
I mean, I love science fiction because for me, it's the genre that lets you ask these deep metaphysical, philosophical questions and wrap it in a story. So I know that's not everyone's definition of sci-fi, but that's what kind of singles out the books that are science fiction that I love. They're big ideas books, and they are usually an argument. There's usually two possible sides of looking at an issue, and the book is like wrestling between them all the way through, and it doesn't come down on one side or the other. And for me, that's science fiction. And time travel especially I love because it lets you ask all these questions about determinism and free will, and how our ideas about the future influence who we are in the present, and how we interpret our past. And I love it.
And with time travel as well, I think every time travel story has its own rules about how these things work and stuff like that. I mean, did you have fun thinking about that, or was it just something that came naturally with the type of story you wanted to tell?
So I'm a huge time travel nerd, and I actually had to pare down the amount of time travel that was in this book over successive revisions, because my poor editors kept reminding me, this is a rom-com. We're aiming to cross over with a mainstream audience here. Like, they're not going to care about... there was a scene where one of the side characters, Rob, who's a physics student, he has a whiteboard and he's drawing all the models of time travel in like pictorial form on the whiteboard. And I was like, this is great, I love this. And my editors were like, no.
But there's something about watching or reading a book, or watching a film or reading a book that about time travel that references other media. Like it's the one I was thinking of, like Avengers Endgame. They talk about the Back to the Future time travel and things like that. And I'm always like, I feel that's kind of an in joke for the nerds, but I feel when it clicks or it lands, it's.
Oh yeah, I did also have references to like the characters are discussing which kind of time travel is in operation, which is actually the main debate of the book between the two central characters, Joe and Essie. One of them thinks that Joe thinks that they're in a stable time loop where everything that has happened because of the time travel always was supposed to happen, and so the future can't be changed. And Essie thinks they're in a rewritable timeline, which is more of a Back to the Future thing of like you can change the future and go back to a different future. But yeah, I had them comparing it to stuff like I think it was Terminator and Back to the Future, and then my answers were again like, no, too nerdy.
What's the Back to the Future plot hole in part 2? Is it?
I mean, there's so many.
Is it when
I
Biff,
love it, but there's so many.
I know. The one I always think of is an old man Biff when he goes back in time. He would have gone back to a different.
Right.
He goes to the future, steals the almanac, right, and then goes back.
No.
Oh no, he goes back in time.
He
goes back to the future.
in the
Oh yeah,
DeLorean
he goes
and
back in time, steals the almanac.
Yeah.
But when he goes back to the future again, it would be to a different future.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have jumped back to the same future he left from because he's already
the whole
changed.
point is it's rewritable.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I'm not that bothered by plot holes, I have to say. I tend to just get swept up in the story and forget it. But yeah, the one that my agent always gets furious about is the end of Avengers Endgame, when Captain America has gone to what we've established in the alternate universe, and then he just walks back from the alternate universe to the original universe
to leave when he drops his stones off.
No, when he comes back and sits next to Sam.
He's an old man.
He's an old man, and he's
wait. Why is that a problem?
Because he's gone to an alternate universe. Anyway, it's fine. Don't think about it. Just go with the story.
Okay. There's just
shaking Tarek's world there.
We have to cut here
and just have like a montage.
I'm gonna go watch Endgame and we're back in 3 hours.
Beautiful mind, right? The formulas on there.
Just screw up paper. No.
Oh, incredible.
But I suppose to stay on that theme of time travel and things like that. I mean, you said obviously plotting has become a more important thing to you. I mean, I'm just wondering about the detail that you go into at that stage with it. Are you going into like full detail with it, or is it more a sort of set of guideposts that you're doing?
It's been fairly detailed. Again, it sort of depends on the project a bit, but for this book, which I rewrote probably about 3 times, the successive rewrites, it was a whole plan for each chapter that was basically, here's exactly what's happening in this chapter.
Right, okay.
It wasn't necessarily scene by scene, but it was kind of this has to happen, then this has to happen, the characters are going to talk about this. And my editor actually wanted me to go a bit further and be like, for every scene, write down what the characters learn, how it changes their path. And I started trying to do that, and it just made me hate myself.
That's tedious. That's too much.
It's almost like homework at that.
Right,
you're sucking the joy of it there.
Right. So I found that the happy medium for me was a sort of chapter level plan, but I guess for different people that it'd be
But we've certainly chatted to some folk who do that level of planning, like and write plans are as long, if not longer, than the book itself.
Right, and then basically just fill
insane.
in the
There is that method I always never tried, always wanted to try. Is it the Snowflake Method, when you write like a log line and then you break it in two and you almost write out the way, so you're padding it out almost, so you're building up. I mean, it sounds mental.
I've never heard of that one. I mean, there's so many different ways. Who was it? We had someone on recently that they would write from the end of the book. They wrote the start of the book, but then at some point they would jump forward and write from the end of the book and then make them meet.
Memento style, it was like writing backwards, which I would struggle with the character motivation, like keeping
who is this person at this point?
I guess you can go back and fix this, but
I get sort of sometimes jumping forward to maybe you've got an idea of where characters need to be. And so if you even write that scene, it might change again. But if you write that scene, it can give you a clearer idea of what you need to do back at that bit to then
in terms of
get there.
Helping you clarify something. I get that. Yeah.
But it's
there's no one.
No, exactly. We've had nearly 250 people on the podcast, and they're all different.
All wrong,
exactly.
They're all differently wrong.
Exactly.
And you said as well you rewrote the book a few times. I mean, was that a complete rewrite, or are you just revising at that point?
I mean, at least one of them was a complete rewrite.
Right, okay.
So that was, I think, might have been the second edit. I mean, I also went through a lot of editors on the UK side because there was a lot of turnover at my publisher. But I don't think it was really because of that. It was mainly I tried to do an edit while I had a 2-month-old baby.
Right, okay.
And also the first draft of this book was written so long ago when I really did not have a clue what I was doing. It was a complete mess. And one of the aspects that made it a mess was it was full of stuff that did not belong there. I had just, and I don't know, I think this is quite common for writers in their early work, is you don't know what belongs in the book and what doesn't. You just kind of throw in everything you think is fun. And so I had a bunch of characters and plot threads that just had no business being in this rom-com. So I think the mistake I made was I tried to basically revise that book rather than going, let's go back to the idea, strip it right down, and then put in things that make sense for that.
Sometimes
concept.
I think it's the option which nobody wants to do, which is sort of the book again from scratch. And so you do anything to avoid doing that, right? And you're like, no, I can work with what I've got here. I just need to strip it away and mine it properly, blah, blah, and change it. But sometimes, as you say, it's just almost using that as your plan to then go back and write it from scratch is sometimes the quickest.
And it's the analogy that always comes to mind for me with that is in Voyage of the Dawn Treader, the Narnia book, when Eustace is turned into a dragon and he starts trying to undragon himself by just scratching off the top layer of his scales, and he's like, oh, this isn't working, and then he realizes he has to basically peel off his skin and it's very sore. And that's basically how it feels sometimes when you hit that realization of, right, oh no, I have to actually do something very painful here, but it is going to result in what I want. So
it's a very difficult thing to do. I find it very difficult to, just from a mental perspective, to detach myself from what I've already written. I find it very difficult to think of a different route through things, even if I know that because you've kind of already worked that out, and you think, well, why am I?
I know it's.
Well, there's a part of you going, why am I?
You become kind of blinkered all the time, and
it's
difficult to see other possible avenues.
I mean, something that helps me is to think of rewrites as fan fiction of my own work.
Okay.
So if you've ever sort of written fan fiction, then that can be a really helpful mindset to put yourself in, because then it becomes fun. It's like, oh, but what if this had happened instead? Or what if these characters had met in these circumstances? And then that might at least puts me in more of a playful space where I'm like, this can actually be enjoyable, rather than going, oh, I have to throw away all of this work.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I like that. And like I read online in an interview with you somewhere that you've got a love of Susanna Clark, and I look at her books, I'm sure everyone does, and Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell and Piranesi are very different books, in length and alone. And I wonder, is that something which you would be quite keen to do? And it sounds like your third book is very different from your first two.
No, absolutely. I just want to write all the weird, crazy books that I want to write, and not have a brand. And again, that's apparently not great career-wise, but that is my dream. And I mean, aspiration to be like, because Susanna Clark's level would be incredible. But
do it, exactly.
And I love that she's been able to do that, despite having a book that was such a huge success that it could have, for a different writer, sort of forced her down that sort of narrow path. But she just wrote what she wanted to write, and it was incredible.
Although I think, is she not revisiting Jonathan Strange?
The last I heard, she'd given up on the sequel because it kind of just got very tangled, and she was ill while writing it.
But I thought more recently, I thought that there was. But
she might be. Maybe she is. I hope so. Hope so. Because I obviously love that book. So
it's an incredible.
Look forward to that in 10 years' time.
It works really well as an audiobook as well, strangely, which you wouldn't
with
all the footnotes and stuff like that, but it was really well done when I listened to it. So you've said you're working on Gothic Horror just now. What stage is that at?
So it's sold in the US, so it is going to come out in America probably summer next year. I'm just doing the line edits, so hopefully we're nearly at the point where that could be. It hasn't been announced yet though, so I probably shouldn't be talking about it. But
that's fine.
The contract is signed, so I'm hoping definitely. It doesn't have a UK deal yet, so I'm really hoping that someone in the UK might want to pick it up, because it would be nice for it to come out here as well. But that's where I'm at with that.
Have you? I know your agent sort of said it was a challenge when you jump about like that, and we've heard that from many guests that they want you, people in the industry want you to stay in your lane because it's easier. But I mean, has that presented you with a problem in terms of selling books and stuff like that?
I mean, not so far, I don't think, because the deal I got in the US has been fantastic, and I'm incredibly happy with it, incredibly happy with the editors and where it's landed. So so far it's been a good thing, if anything, for me. I mean, not selling in the UK, I don't know why that is, it could be a lot of factors. It could be the book itself is set in the US, so maybe that put off some UK editors. It could be that I'm jumping genre. It could be, but I'd rather not sort of torture myself by thinking about that too much, and just be happy with the fact that I've got one really good deal, and I'm excited about where it's going to go. And hopefully, if I can make this work, then it opens up. Here is a person who writes multiple things. Would be a brand that I would like to have.
Absolutely. It's funny, but I mean, as we said, there's some people do have that ability to write different genres and not be pinned down and not have to use pen names or initials or whatever. I never. I guess it depends on sales, I suppose. I mean, I guess it comes down to money at the end of the day. Like if it's marketed, if they're able to find a way to do it, they'll find a way to do it.
And also the kind of perennial thing, which is if you write a book that they want enough, then they won't care if it kind of clashes with your previous brand. But that's quite tricky to do and also dependent on luck. So
so much of this industry is luck and being told, we want the same, but we want something a little bit different, but not too different, and it's very impossible to know. I think as everyone's always said to us, is you got to write the book that you want to write and you're excited by, and don't worry too much about what you'll do with it when it's written. But just
absolutely, because that's all you can control.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Chase the market that's constantly moving is a bad idea.
We had Stuart Turton on a while ago, and one thing he always said, because he is like that as well, he wants to write completely different books, and he said as much. But also he said he would like it, and he was totally serious about this, even though it sounds like a joke, is he would like it if his books didn't have his name on, like no name on them at all, because
why was that again?
Because he doesn't want it because I think people get attached to, that person writes crime or
I want another Stuart Turton book which will be
exactly.
X, Y, and Z.
And he was like, no, I'd rather just have the book out there without my name on it at all, which is a unique perspective,
I suppose.
But I get where he's coming from.
It's that. It's. I think. I would also hate to be pinned down like that and to be told you can only write one thing, and if you want to write something else, you need to pretend to be a different person, and it's a very weird. Because directors make different types of movies, and you write. Films industry is very varied, and look at someone like Christopher Nolan does a variety of stuff, and I know they do very well. And again, it probably does always come back to money. And if your books are selling consistently, I suppose maybe that makes it okay. But it feels unfair that you have to be a person and lie about who you are to do something else.
And some people like that, some people only want to write one kind of thing, but if you're not one of those people and you want to just do what you want to do, then it's, it can be tricky.
So Gothic Horror line edit stage, are you already working on the next one?
No,
right.
I basically I pushed myself quite hard to make the structural edit deadline for the Gothic, and what I said before about burning out slightly, that happened because I was working every evening and every weekend for a while. So I'm planning not to try and sell anything on proposal or anything like that. I'm planning to just finish this up, have a little bit of a break, and then just work on something at my own pace, which will be nice. Obviously financially that becomes trickier, but I have a day job for many reasons, and this is one of them, that I can afford to just take some time to slow down a bit, think about what I want, what genre I want to write next, what kind of direction I want to go in. So
I think that's a very good way to look at it. I think it's often quite easy, isn't it, to get caught up in I must have something out every year. I must be in there in the public eye continually. I don't want to fade away. But as you say, that can lead to burnout. And I think if you have the ability, if you're out of contract and you've got the ability to take a bit of a break and to let an idea percolate or to work out what you want to do, I think that is a good, sensible use of time.
I think it's helped that I was sort of accidentally forced into the situation of having 4 years between books, between my first and second book, because I had 2 kids and the edits for this one were difficult. So I think that kind of forced me to get over I haven't had a book out for it, because it's like, it's actually fine. I feel okay. I mean, I don't know how this book is doing yet, but it feels like it's doing okay, and the world did not collapse because I took,
no, exactly. And you sold another book, and everything's still moving forward.
Exactly. So that's helped me to calm down about it a little bit, I think.
Nice.
Cool. Well, those were the main questions that we had for you, but we always end the podcast by asking our guests the same questions. The first of which is, what was the last book that you read?
Oh, see, I knew these questions were coming, but I'm like, I guess it would be for the Romantasy panel that I just did, and it was Long Live Evil by Sarah Rees Brennan, which is a lot of fun, which I highly recommend to anyone who likes sort of meta stories about stories.
Oh, nice.
So it's about a cancer patient who gets sucked into the world of her sister's favourite book. And she is the villain. She is the role of the villain, so she tries to kind of get the villains to unionize and take down the good guys. And it's as much fun as it sounds. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Cool.
What about the last film that you watched?
Oh, The Old Guard 2.
I've heard.
I've not heard.
bad
I mean,
things,
I
yeah.
was such a fan of the first one and waited so long.
It's
and
been a while
was,
since.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And I mean, it was nice to see the characters again. And basically, my favourite things about that film universe are the kind of concept of the immortals from all over different countries and periods, the casual multilingualism that they all chat to each other in all their different languages. So I just want to watch like a slice of life movie where they all hang out. And so all the plot, I was a bit like, oh, great, okay.
I enjoyed the first one. I remember like the first one
first
quite a
one
bit
was good,
years ago and watched it.
The second one ends on a cliffhanger. In case you didn't know that,
I heard
already,
that as well.
It's very surprising if you're not expecting a cliffhanger. So be warned.
And given
Almost
the
certainly
reviews,
won't
it
get
might
another
not-
one.
I know
Yeah.
It might not get there, unfortunately, which is bad. But what about TV? What are you watching on TV at the moment?
Murderbot.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Like everyone, I
I
assume
watched
it's
it.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure whether Alexander Skarsgård was the right casting for Murderbot because I mean, how do you cast Murderbot? But he is fantastic. His line delivery is just perfect. You can hear the voice that you hear when you read Murderbot.
Oh,
It's just,
brilliant! Yeah.
Really short episodes, I've heard as well.
Yes, also really,
Are they?
really easy
Oh,
to
I
binge.
like
Yeah.
that. That's a mega tick in my book. Yeah. Well, the very last thing we always do is a very quick fire either or. No right answer apart from one. And I'm sure we're going to get the right answer this time. It's been a while since we've heard the right
no
answer.
wrong answer, I feel. But anyway.
No right.
Yeah, you can't be right. Whatever you say is going to be wrong.
Do I say no right answer?
Yeah.
That is wrong,
That's
isn't
very
it? There's
negative.
no...
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
0 points for everybody.
No, but then because only the last question has a right answer.
Or
is
a
that
wrong
not it?
answer. I don't know. I'm confused now. I'm almost
This
as
is
confused
worse
as
than
you with
Endgame.
Captain America.
Right, let's start off with Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell or Piranesi.
Oh, you can't make me pick. Oh, it's so unfair, but I'd have to say Piranesi.
Nice, okay.
Yeah.
TV or cinema?
TV, I don't get to go to the cinema anymore.
Night Owl or Early Bird?
I mean, Night Owl. I wish.
Music or no music when you're writing?
When I'm writing, no music, but I do make playlists to help me sort of plot books and things
Okay.
like
Okay,
characters
cool.
and stuff.
Okay, nice. And last one, let's go for audiobook or ebook.
Wait, this
Yeah,
is not
exactly.
the usual question.
Exactly.
What?
He's wimping out of it.
I mean,
Oh, yeah,
I can
no,
answer that one. I can also answer the original one.
do the audiobook ebook first and then we'll get to the real
Ebook.
question.
Ebook.
I don't have any audio attention span.
Thanks
I
for
can't-
listening. We'll see you later.
yeah. No. You might be pleasantly
Okay. Let's go for real book or ebook then.
Ebook. 100% ebook.
There you go.
Anyone who
Incredible.
answers,
Honestly, I think
if I
that's
had
the
gone
first
back
thing.
in time and I had said to my younger self, you will be able to take your entire library on holiday with you. If you want to read a book, you'll be able to do it instantly. without having to go
Yes.
to a bookshop or a library. I would have been
Yes.
like, I want to live in this future. It's incredible.
Why is nobody else on the same
They're all
wavelength? I
wrong. They're
don't
easily
understand
fooled by
it.
pretty
Because they love
spreads.
their spreads.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
weirdos, they love their
It's about the
spreads. They're
content.
sniffing the glue.
Sniffing the
Yeah.
glue in the paper. Yeah,
about the
exactly.
words.
It is about the words.
Yeah.
No, well, after all the chat about loot boxes, and I was like, oh God, I've got to adapt that question.
You wimped out.
I did
of it.
wimp out. I should have held my nerve.
Honestly, I
Trust me,
think you are the first person in
It's
about
been a-
20
I know,
episodes.
I'm a
It
regular
has
listener.
been.
So
Yeah.
Right, this is fantastic news. This has made my day. This has absolutely made my day. I'm going to go on a high. Wonderful.
Well, I would
Excellent.
think
Glad
about
to help.
Captain America. But thanks very much for coming in to this heat box that is the studio.
Yeah, no,
We
sorry, it's so
survived.
warm in here.
Yeah, we survived. Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode like these ones down here.
And if you want to get in touch, you can do so by finding us on our social media platforms up here or drop us a comment way down below there.
But otherwise, thanks for listening and join us for the next episode.
See you later.